in the synagogue I grew up in, Temple Israel in Minneapolis, they do something called Views from the Pews. And they do it, I think, throughout the summer. And it's really hearing from the voices of the congregation about their Jewish journey, their story. And so I kind of said, why don't we try this? Why don't we try hearing other people's stories? We had been hearing stories from congregants and have this theme of storytelling for the year. So we reached out to a few people. A couple people came up to us and said, I have a story to share. Yeah. So Michael Yalovitser would love to share his story this evening, and let's get you mic'd up.
And I just want to say, by way of introduction, as Michael is getting on his microphone, many of you know Michael from the last few years. He and Tatiana, his wife, have become very enthusiastic and wonderfully participatory members of our community since they joined. You can find Michael singing in the choir and playing clarinet in the band, and very often joining us at Torah study. And those who have studied regularly have probably heard Michael more than once talk about how meaningful it is for him to be part of this Jewish community, to study Torah, to learn. When you hear a little bit more about his personal story, I think you'll understand even more deeply why that has been of such significance.
The first written public record of my family from my father's side is going back to the Lithuania census of 1834 of the residents of Mir. And you may have heard about this little town because of the famous yeshiva that was established there in 1815. The Mir Yeshiva in Jerusalem is the largest yeshiva in the world, I'm repeating, with over 8,500 students. And this is the map of the Minsk. You see Belarusia and Minsk, and behind a little bit Mir. It's around 80 miles from Minsk. It's absolutely astonishing that it started from a little town of Mir with some 600 Jews that lived there in the mid-18th century. The Jews of Mir traded in furs, livestock, grain, wine, and other goods. Alongside the traders were weavers, tailors, and silversmiths, and among them my great-grandparents, who owned a tailoring business. They produced fur coats, shoes, and other leather goods. At the beginning of 1900, the family moved to Minsk to explore a better business opportunity. With the approaching of World War I, the business started to go down, declining, and my great-grandfather learned about this distant relative who lived in America. So he went to America to make some money, earn some money, to relocate the family to New York. Unfortunately, on his way back, he was got, mugged, and killed. From the left to right, my great-grandmother, Merka, their daughter, Nehama and Fira, and great-grandfather, Itzcha. Next are grandmother, Sheina, and grandfather, Motel, who take a special place in my story. Because if not for them, there would be no future stories. It would be no me to tell the story. In June 1941, Minsk was the first Soviet capital city to fall to German occupation. The Germans had ordered some 40,000 Jews to assemble for registration under the penalty of death. On the fifth day, over 2,000 members of Jewish intelligentsia, such as rabbis, architects, scientists, were ordered to step forward. Well, they believed they will granted a privileged position. Instead, they were promptly marched off to nearby forest and shot. On July 20, the Minsk ghetto was established at 34th Street long. The ghetto was surrounded by thick rows of barbed wire. Watchtowers were erected, and around-the-clock surveillance was established. And you can see on the picture the poster. It said, whoever will get close, warning, close to the wire, it will get shot. A living space of 1.5 square meters were allotted for each person, with no space allotted for the children. Thousands of the ghetto inhabitants lived among the ruins of destroyed or gutted houses without floors or windows. All Jewish children, men and women, including those who ever intermarried, were demanded to relocate to ghetto. My grandmother, my grandparents and their children, Yosef, Yezel, Benjamin, and Sima, and about 100,000 Jews were forced to live in horrid condition and constant fear, and got humiliated in all possible forms before they got killed. This you can see, this is Minsk, and you can see the Nazis enjoying the Jews riding on each other. Daily, the men of the Enzi group were shooting thousands of Jews. The strain was too great, and more humane method for German soldiers had to be found. The Nazis created a self-sufficient gassing van. This vehicle had an airtight compartment for victims into which exhaust gas was piped while the engine was running. As a result, the victims were gassed to death by carbon monoxide while being transported to the freshly dug pit. Hundreds of people were lined up daily for their last journey. The Germans warned the Jews that if anybody attempted to escape the line, immediately 10 people in front and 10 people in behind will get shot. On March 2, 1942, on holiday of Purim, the Nazis round up 5,000 random victims to gas. Amongst these victims were my 19-year-old father and 15-year-old brother, Bencha, his brother. As soon as my grandparents, Motel and Shana, heard of this, they ran to the line and bribed the Jewish policemen to let them take their son's place in line. That was the last day my father saw his parents, who sacrificed their lives for their children. A few days later, the SS was chasing my father and his youngest brother, Yosul. Boys climbed to the roof of the building in order to escape by jumping from one roof to another. My father jumped the first, but Yosul, he was only 6 years old. He was scared to jump. And my father was screaming, Yosul, jump. And then SS men caught up with him, and they shot him in front of my father in the head. My father was in shock. He hid behind the chimney, and he was laying till nightfall. And then with his brother, they picked up Yosul, dead body, and buried. They was crying, they was devastated. In July 1942, my father, his brother Bencha, and his sister Sima, with the help of underground ghetto resistance, escaped to the surrounding forest, Naliboki forest. They spent the remaining years of the war living in the wild and fighting the Germans as members of Tuvo Belsky and Shalom Zorin partisan units, who you may have heard from the movie Defiance, or maybe from your own family stories. If you can see the picture, the last row from the right side, it's my father. He's young from the right side and down on the first one. And this is the excerpts from the book Mstители Ghetto, this is a Russian word, Mstители, or they call the Ghetto Avengers, written by Hersh Smoller, who actually participating in the partisan. When the 5 Belsky partisan unit has been killed, from the ghetto came Lev Berlin, Tol Serlin, Lev Rubin, and Yosef Yalovitser, my father, and many others. All of them were met by the commander Zus Belsky, and he told them, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, be brave, and remember our brothers, sisters, fathers, and mothers who got slaughtered by the Germans. My father was very brave. He was a member of the demolition unit, and they was blowing up the trains with the artillery and tanks and destroying the German communication lines. It's a very, very dangerous task. And many his comrades got killed by the Germans' convoy or by explosive. During one operation, the grenade exploded near him. He fell unconscious. But his friends were able to carry him out from the battle. But the trauma affected his speech. And for the rest of his life, he stuttered badly. It was very hard to talk to him. According to the statistics, 86,632 Jews were murdered in Minsk during the occupation. A few years ago, I visited Minsk, and I went to the graves of my grandparents. This monument called the Pit, that was dedicated to the victims of the Holocaust in Minsk. The obelisk was created in 1947, and later a bronze sculpture titled "The Last Way" was added. It's built on the site where on March 2, 1942, the Nazi forces gassed about 5,000 inhabitants of the Minsk ghetto. Among these were my great and grandparents. And if you see the line, the last is a Jew with a fiddle. And this is the pit. This is you see that it's the fiddle. And this is the pit actually. It was bigger, and it's like probably around 25,000 people buried over there. And this is the place where they buried. And here the record of my father from the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C., and the Museum of Jewish Heritage. And it's a Jewish partisan, you can read, in Belarus in 1941, 1944, in Yalovitser, Joseph, Yosef. And the next is my father's picture. And you see he was so proud of his medals. Jew with the medals. It's unbelievable. I was born in September 1947. I was only child raised by loving and protective parents. My father worked very hard as a house painter, and we always had food on our table. But anti-Semitism did not vanish with the end of the World War II. Against all odds, I graduated from Minsk University with a bachelor in electrical engineering. While in college, I volunteered as a research assistant for the science who's conducting his PhD dissertation. Impressed with my ability, he offered me a job at the Belarusian Academy of Science so that I could continue research and study toward my graduate degree. I submitted my job application to the academy, but as soon I showed them my passport, and the fifth column, it says Jewish, nationality Jewish. This is the fifth line. Again, immediately they told me the job was not available for you. And I was assigned to work as a low-level supervisor at the plant, electrical plant. Numerous insults, confrontation, and even arrest that accompanied my young adult life. My experiences were unfortunately not too different from the majority of the Russian Jews in the 60s and 70s. In order to support my family and survive without a job, I spent the next year, I saw no future in Russia for my family. And in 76, I applied for immigration visa. But after when I applied, I've been publicly humiliated, and I put in front of the global plant meeting, and I was promptly declared as a traitor, and was fired from my job without any visa and money. So, because thank God I was playing saxophone. In order to support my family and survive without a job, I spent the next year playing music at Jewish weddings. And a few occasions, and was summoned to the police precinct for conducting a Zionist gathering. The weddings, Jewish weddings, because we played Jewish songs, because playing the Jewish, singing Jewish music, song. We declared the Zionist gathering. In 1977, I was lucky to receive an exit visa. I emigrated to New York 1978 with my family and my parents. Unfortunately, my dear father passed away from cancer, died, and did not live to enjoy into this blessed country. I worked simultaneously as a cab driver and super in the building and took night classes at the vocational school, all while attempting to learn English. I didn't know English well, and sometimes I was driving the cab, and guess what? Instead to go to JFK, I was ending in La Guardia. The people was very upset. They missed the plane, and the money, guess what? I had to pay. So, like almost a couple of weeks, I was working without money. In 1979, I got a job with the Chase Manhattan Bank and started working as a computer technician. I taught myself coding, operating system, and machine language. In 1982, I was offered a position at Union Bank of Switzerland as a system programmer. My dear daughter Josephine, named after my father Joseph, was born in 1996 in Norwalk, Connecticut. With my wife Tanya, we raised her in a spirit of tikkun olam. From an early age, we taught her not to take anything for granted, cherish her freedom, and appreciate the food on the table, and help others whenever she can. Most importantly, we taught her the values of what it means to be a good Jew. Josephine is a prominent volunteer whenever she happens to live or travel. Her outstanding service to community was acknowledged by the President George W. Bush in this Daily Point of Light award that she received for creating a meaningful change in community across America, and we're extremely proud of the person that we raised. We also are blissfully happy and proud of Josephine's devotion to Jewish faith. Throughout college, she was a member of Chabad at Dartmouth. She visited Israel multiple times and plans to spend a few years working there after the grad school. Our daughter is proud of her Jewish identity. She created a website dedicated to uniqueness of Jewish music and the role of music in Judaism, a time of joy and time of sorrow. You can find there the song that you may have heard the last time from your great-grandparents. The website called Songs of My People, Songs of My People. In my most optimistic dreams back in Belarus, I could have never imagined that there will become a time when my daughter would be honored by President of the United States, that her name and picture would be printed on the Carnegie Hall posters, that she would be accepted by one of the best universities in the world. And she never would be called as dirty Jew, as I was called back in Russia. All the members of my direct family have been long gone, and Tanya's parents never emigrate here. So, and all my relatives live in Brooklyn. So we was very lonely here, pretty lonely in Westchester, until 3 years ago we joined Mazel Tov, the community synagogue of Rai. The CSR clergy and CSR community, it's you, have brought a new light in our life. And we are really, really opened for us the true wisdom of the Torah. I'll never forget the overwhelming feeling of joy when I was honored to carry the Torah the first time. Involuntarily, tears was running on my wife and on me. I was crying, and I was holding the Torah. You know, I don't know if I cannot explain what I felt at that time. It's like I went to the heaven. It was incredible. And thank you for your friendship, support, and understanding. And a small token of our appreciation, on the Tu B'Shvat, we planted a tree in Israel in honor of Community Synagogue of Rai. God bless CSR community. God bless its clergy. And God bless United States of America. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
That was incredible. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.